see trees of green, red roses too. I see them.
Welcome to Childhood Cancer Talk Radio, powered by Jack's Angels, where we talk about your experiences, advocacy news, research, and today's heroes for kids. We are here to bring hope to the unthinkable but real experience of a child diagnosed with cancer. Jack's Angels' advocacy mission is to provide a voice for children with cancer, to effect change for a more hopeful future for those to come. Childhood Cancer Talk Radio starts right now. Here is your host, Janet Demeter.
And welcome to Childhood Cancer Talk Radio, where kids come first for the cure. I'm Janet. To my producer, I'm getting some other feed on my audio. Might have to begin that again. Hello? Should I just begin? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry about that. Well, welcome to Childhood Cancer Talk Radio, where kids come first for the cure. I'm Janet Demeter, your host, and today's one-year anniversary edition features what's making news in childhood cancer awareness in January 2017 and what a difference a year can make. Our first show was January 14th, 2016, 2 days after President Obama's final State of the Union address, Vice President Biden's Moonshot Initiative announcement, and 1 day after Congressman Knight of California's 25th District, his first introduction of a National DIPG Awareness Resolution. Our show featured Jamie Wright King, mom to little Katie, who was battling DIPG, and she sadly passed away June 6th of last year. Jamie has remained a tour de force for DIPG research and awareness, raising funds for Dr. Monge's laboratory at Stanford University and creating a legacy for Katie, otherwise known as Catherine the Brave. But little Katie's fate is not an uncommon story. Perhaps in the lengths that they've gone to and creating a legacy for her and her name being very popular in our circles. But the little-known childhood cancer called DIPG, diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma, has been taking lives regularly and without exception for decades. It's the one you don't want to have if you get cancer, and it's the one no one wants to discuss. And almost exclusively pediatric, this glioma is inoperable as it is diffusely infiltrating, meaning it's all intertwined with healthy tissue, and it affects the pons area, the brainstem, in the center of your head, literally, which is basically the most protected area of the brain and the most vulnerable, as it serves as a sort of grand central station for all neural impulses to and from the brain, as well as most vital content basic to survival. DIPG is also one of the most chemotherapy-resistant cancers. Its location makes it one of the most difficult to treat, and funding for research to save the lives of these children has been inadequate to make significant progress in over 50 years, as Neil Armstrong's daughter died of it in 1962. Since then, there's been little change in standard treatment protocol or general prognosis. This is true for other of the deadliest childhood cancers, the afflicted being compromised of relatively small population numbers. These diseases are labeled rare and don't receive the attention necessary to save these children's lives. DIPG is a poignant example of the relative neglect, and I say it not to be mean, but it's just kind of the experience that some people have of the pediatric cancer in the medical research industry. And we hope that the movement for greater awareness of these tragedies serves to help shed light on the larger problem, heralding the need for change. My first guest today has been part of this increase in awareness research funding activity amongst parent-initiated foundations, and she's been a true pioneer in affirming and carrying out the mission of defeating DIPG, which was the last checklist item of her beloved son, Michael, who perished to DIPG in May of 2015. Jenny Mosier is the executive director and co-founder of Michael Mosier Defeat DIPG Foundation, and a lawyer by training. Jenny started her legal career in private practice with Covington and Burling LLP before joining the Office of Attorney General in the Department of Justice. But in the fall of 2014, she was serving as deputy Chief of Staff and counselor to Attorney General Eric Holder when she learned the tragic news that her 6-year-old son Michael had a cancerous tumor in his brainstem called diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma. Now, I can go on with this story that she has provided me, but I would prefer to speak directly to her. And this amazing project that she has masterminded for the country, really, and in support of DIPG awareness and ultimately research and a cure. Welcome to the show, Jenny. I'm so glad you could be with me today.
Thank you so much, Janet, for having me, and congratulations on the 1-year anniversary of your show. That's really a great achievement.
Well, I'm just so pleased that you could be with us for that and this project, because it's such a testament, isn't it, to, so many of us parents for a long time, and it's not just with DIPG, but so many different childhood cancers have been rallying for change and rallying for more awareness. And I'm so excited about this project. It's called DIPG Across the Map to our listeners. And of course, any and all information pertaining to Defeat DIPG Foundation, the Michael Mosier Defeat DIPG Foundation, can be found at defeatdipg.org. So tell us a little bit about how it began. I know that you've had 2 previous gubernatorial proclamations last year for DIPG
Sure.
in 2 different states.
Sure. Well, last year, through our foundation, we were grateful to work with the Maryland Governor's Office, Governor Hogan, and established the first ever DIPG Awareness Day in the state of Maryland, which we were, really proud of, and especially proud to share and mark that occasion with many other families in Maryland who had lost children to this tragic disease. Similarly, after our proclamation was announced, we were really delighted that one of our DIPG collaborative partners, Aiden's Avengers, also succeeded in establishing May 17th as an awareness day in Pennsylvania. And we were thrilled that, we had sort of 2 states who had adopted this day. And, there also had been, just to be sure, we also recognize in Michigan there had been a DIPG Awareness Day, which was established in September through the work of Chad Tuff Foundation. And so,
Right.
we had noticed that there was this movement to get some increased awareness for our kids, which I know as a parent who, sat in a hospital room and was told about this horrific disease, which I had never heard of. It felt so frustrating as we came to learn, unfortunately, the details and the cruelty of what DIPG inflicts, that this was something that no one else really knew about. And when we would tell people about Michael's diagnosis, to a person, they basically said, "Oh, I've never heard of DIPG." And so, we knew there was really important work to do to spread the word, and of course, there have been parents working on this mission, for a number of years, and we were eager to join those forces. And with respect to sort of the current project for 2017, we were really grateful. We had talked to a few different families in different states who were really interested in pursuing May 17th as an awareness day for their state, including, I think, one of your later guests for today in Kentucky, who had reached out and to talk to us about their efforts. We had heard from another family in Tennessee. And so we were really sort of beginning to feel that there was a momentum that we could build on in order to try to really unify families together and try to spread this effort and get this day recognized in as many states as possible. And, we kind of have a few central what I've called pillars to this initiative. And, the first is really that by working together to advocate for the same day across many different states, that we can all sort of draw strength from each other and gain more momentum by having a unified day.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and the second really is that while, we think it is immensely important for every family and every advocate to share their own personal story and connection. And, to be clear, we have many volunteers who don't have personal family members who have had DIPG, but just really care about the cause for, one reason or another. But we really think that the effort should not be, child specific, and instead be an attempt to include and represent every single child who has faced this disease or will face it tomorrow. And so, our hope is that as this spreads and as we have DIPG awareness days in more and more states, that it is truly felt by the community that this is something for each and every, child and family who has had to confront this disease.
Well, you know what, Jenny, this unification that actually is inherent in the project that you're creating, because it's basically getting DIPG families and those, who are concerned to be together and to talk about and realize, wow, we are a force to be dealt with, and the importance of every person's experience. It's brilliant. And, because often, I know for myself, when I was first investigating, trying to do a national proclamation, everyone's like, well, we got to get a recognizable person and this and that. That ends up being, it's good sometimes, but at other times it can be dividing. And in an experience like DIPG, where people have been so have just lacked so much attention for the tragedy that they endure, this is especially important. And I'm going to have to pause for a station identification and just let our listeners know that you're listening to Childhood Cancer Talk Radio, where kids come first for the cure. I'm Janet Demeter, your host, and when we come back, we'll be speaking more with Jenny and also with Nicholas Smith, father to Brooklyn, the inspiration for Smiles for Brooklyn, a 501c3 charity dedicated to finding a cure for DIPG. This family is going through it real time with DIPG, the second most common pediatric brain cancer. We'll be right back after these messages from our TogiNet sponsors. Don't go away.
Stay tuned. Janet will be right back with more on Childhood Cancer Talk Radio, where kids come first for the cure.
Have you heard? The pages of American Patchwork and Quilting magazine come to life on our new weekly online radio show, American Patchwork and Quilting. Join Pat Sloan, our blogging and quilt designer host, as she talks about the latest trends, ideas, and inspirations. Her guests include quilt pattern designers, authors, quilt shop owners, and our editors, all quilters, just like you. Call in with your questions. Get quilting tips from industry experts. Learn about free patterns. Hear behind-the-scenes stories from our magazines, American Patchwork and Quilting, Quilt Sampler, and Quilts and More. Get the scoop on free stuff and find out more about the best independent quilt shops in North America. To listen to a live show, tune in Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Just log on to allpeoplequilt.com/radio. To hear past shows, go to iTunes and search for American Patchwork and Quilting Radio. We hope you'll join us because we know that quilting changes everything.
It's words you never heard.
Did you hear about Wesley, the golden retriever puppy from Michigan that was fitted with braces? Before you think this is a bona fide insanity, Wesley was born with teeth that were so crooked he couldn't shut his mouth all the way. This was affecting his ability to eat properly. So his owners took him to the Harborfront Hospital for Animals and Veterinary Dental Solutions, where a doggy orthodontist prescribed him a set of braces. And now, pictures of Wesley smiling with his bright, shiny braces have been circling the internet. With all that metal wrapped around their teeth, some would think that most dogs would become bruxomaniacs, but not Wesley. He doesn't mind the braces at all, and is now able to eat his food with gusto. A bruxomaniac maniac is someone with an uncontrollable urge to grind their teeth.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
And we're back with Childhood Cancer Talk Radio, where every child is a life, not a number, here on TogiNet.com. Childhood Cancer Talk Radio is brought to you in part by Jack's Angels Foundation for Pediatric Brain Cancer Awareness and Research and Advocacy for Children with Cancer on the web at jacksangels.org. We are back with our discussion with Jenny Mosier and some special friends linked together by DIPG, one of the most common pediatric brain cancers and the deadliest, and the Across the Map project for DIPG Awareness Day to be May 17th this year in as many states as possible. I'd like to introduce to you first, and Jenny, of course, will stay with us, Nicholas Smith, and I will call him Nick, father to Brooklyn, who is going through a real-time battle with DIPG. They have started a 501c3 in support of awareness and research. And, you know, I have this beautiful story you've written out before me of your journey with your daughter. And, you know, instead of my just reading it through, I'd rather just talk to you about it and hear it from you. What was it like when all this started, and what happened?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to the show, and Jenny, thank you for allowing us to be part of the Across the Map project. Definitely, it hits home with us. So thank you both.
Thank you, Nicholas, for joining us.
So Brooklyn's story actually started January 11th of last year. When we, like any parent, unimaginably, we were told, based off of symptoms, that Brooklyn had DIPG. It was a week after her 5th birthday to the day that we found this out.
And what was happening with Brooklyn that made you realize that, wow, something big is going on here?
Oddly enough, Brooklyn has one speed, and it's full speed ahead. And we started noticing some what we thought was clumsiness, and it became, she would trip going up the stairs, or just the balance started becoming an issue. She went to the same school that my wife taught at. Brooklyn was in preschool there. And we were getting up one morning ready for school, and she was using the restroom and actually fell off the toilet and hit her head. So we called the pediatrician, and she was due for her 5-year checkup. And the pediatrician, because of we regularly been seen there, the pediatrician was like, "Well, you're due for this checkup coming up, so no rush. You're scheduled. We'll just take a look." And Brooklyn had a history of ear infections. So Mom and I kind of played it off as, I'm sure it's maybe inner ear, something similar to vertigo. Long story short, my wife was teaching. She teaches middle school. She was teaching, and the director of the preschool daycare program came to her and said, we need to talk. Something's wrong. Brooklyn was having some speech issues. There was some drooping of the left side of her face. And, of course, knowing my wife, knew there were some issues, she fell apart, called the pediatrician. We both rushed her there. They sent us to Cincinnati Children's Medical Center, and there is where we were, punched in the gut with the news.
Wow. I appreciate your candor and your willingness to talk about it. As a parent, a DIPG parent myself, I understand how hard it is, especially, you're going through it right now. How is she doing today?
Brooklyn has had a good year. She's unable to walk. She's unable to speak fluently. And she cannot use either arm. So she's a full lift. So Mom and I pretty much do everything with her. And her speech again isn't fluent. We can make it out. It is difficult, but she's a fighter. She wakes up every day with that trademark smile of hers. So that's what keeps us going.
That's fantastic. That's one common thread I hear with all of these kids, as they're just amazing and unstoppable. There's a little girl right now we had on the show. We had her mom on here, and she went through that whole insertion of the microcatheters in the UK. And, same thing. Her mom asked her, because she had a bad reaction at first, and her mom asked her, are we giving up yet? And she was like, nope. We're going to keep going.
They're
and
amazing.
she's hanging in there. She's doing better today than she was. So, yeah, there's always hope. But what I want our listeners to know is that the cruelty of the disease is that, for a very long time, and I do believe there's hope and things are starting to shift for people. For a very long time, parents have been expected to simply watch their child lose their faculties and disappear from the earth. And why? Everywhere we would turn, we would hear, oh, well, it's rare and the numbers aren't great enough for investors, and, totally not taking in consideration that they were all dying, and all these families were going through this heinous experience. And but one of the things that also that is so important, I think, about this Across the Map project is that it, along with the national resolution that Jack's Angels is trying to push, is it's finally bringing attention not only to the disease, but to these incredible children and these incredible families. I was reading in what you had provided to me that she had some special, when my son went through it, he just had radiation treatment, but I'm seeing that she had to have surgery. She went through a lot, didn't she?
She did. So we actually never made it out of the hospital in January of last year without surgery. The tumor, because of its location in the pons, had blocked the ventricles from draining the natural fluid that your body produces. So her ventricles were extremely swollen, and she underwent placement of a VP shunt, which has a catheter and a valve that siphons the correct amount of fluid out of her head. It was causing headaches. They said that had a lot to do with the imbalance issues, which they said is extremely rare with DIPG. They don't see that a lot. So Brooklyn was fortunate enough to be blessed with two quote unquote rare incidents. Wow. Well,
I'm glad that she's doing well and everything's pretty stable right now for her.
It is. She had her 6 weeks of radiation, and she started in April a phase 1 clinical trial on an investigational chemotherapy. She was the first in the country to go on this particular drug for DIPG.
Excellent.
And she has been on that now for going on 10 months, I believe. So she takes it for every night for 3 weeks, and then she gets a 1 week break period.
Is it an infusion or is it an oral medication? How does she take it?
It is oral, yes.
It's oral. Wow. Well, there are a lot of really cool breakthroughs, I think, on the horizon for DIPG treatment. And so we're staying hopeful, and also that this Across the Map project and a potential national resolution will help bring more, not only more awareness, but hopefully more research activity, or at least people recognize the urgent need for it. And I can't commend you enough for what you're doing. On top of the real-time battle, you've managed to become a symposium sponsor for DIPG Collaborative. That's amazing. Can you tell us about that?
It was important for us. We were blessed. We live in just south of Cincinnati, and as most know, the Cure Starts Now is based out of Cincinnati.
Yes.
And our area is also infamous for having Lauryn Hill in our backyard.
Right.
And, yeah. So we, right off the get-go, our family and friends reached out to both the Cure Starts Now and Lauren's Fight for the Cure. They have been just phenomenal in the support that they've provided, both Lisa Hill and Keith and Brooke Desserick of the Cure Starts Now. And, we had no idea. I mean, we had heard of Lauren. I'm sad to say, I would turn on the TV, hear the story, and go on with my life, as sad as that was.
Yeah.
And that I woke up dealing with that, and just what Lauren started in the Cincinnati area and what the Cure Starts Now continues to do, the support they gave us and just having hope. And that's what their research and the funds that the collaborative provide. And, we were sitting in the hospital and the doctor told us, we're lucky if we get 2 years, and there was nothing that could be done. And then you have organizations like the Cure Starts Now, like the Michael Mosier Defeat DIPG, who are giving families like myself, some hope that there is a tomorrow. So it was very important for us, once we established Smile for Brooklyn, to join that fight.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And I can't thank you enough for doing it and bringing it to us here. We were going to have some reps from the DIPG Collaborative come on at one point, and it was just too crazy at the times, but we're hoping to devote a show to the Cure Starts Now and the Collaborative and all the amazing foundations that are coming together to find solutions for this horrible disease. I'm Janet Demeter, your host for Childhood Cancer Talk Radio. We're speaking with Nicholas Smith of Smiles for Brooklyn. We'll be back with DIPG Across the Map after these messages from our TogiNet sponsors. Don't go away. We're also going to be speaking with a retired biotech researcher and getting his perspective as a friend from a distance on the whole DIPG experience. Don't go away.
Stay tuned. Janet will be right back with more on Childhood Cancer Talk Radio, where kids come first for the cure.
It's words you never heard.
Have you ever walked into a room on a mission to get something and totally forgot what you went in there for? I do it all the time, which makes me feel like a total civ head, as the Brits would say. Some might blame it on old age, but a recent study reported in the Quarterly Journal of Experimental Psychology suggests the simple act of passing through a doorway causes memory lapses. It appears the brain regards a doorway as an event boundary and effectively files away whatever you were thinking about as soon as you step through. What's a word for the feeling your thoughts are being stolen? Nucleptia. So, what's the solution? Try carrying an object that reminds you of the task. For example, if you go into another room to get a pair of scissors, carry the object you want to cut.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Have you heard? The pages of American Patchwork and Quilting magazine come to life on our new weekly online radio show, American Patchwork and Quilting. Join Pat Sloan, our blogging and quilt designer host, as she talks about the latest trends, ideas, and inspirations. Her guests include quilt pattern designers, authors, quilt shop owners, and our editors, all quilters, just like you. Call in with your questions. Get quilting tips from industry experts. Learn about free patterns. Hear behind-the-scenes stories from our magazines, American Patchwork and Quilting, Quilt Sampler, and Quilts and More. Get the scoop on free stuff and find out more about the best independent quilt shops in North America. To listen to a live show, tune in Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Just log on to allpeoplequilt.com/radio. To hear past shows, go to iTunes and search for American Patchwork and Quilting Radio. We hope you'll join us because we know that quilting changes everything.
And we're back again. I'm Janet Demeter with Childhood Cancer Talk Radio, where every child is a life, not a number, here on toginet.com. We will continue in a moment with our great conversation with Jenny Mosier about the DIPG Across the Map project. I'm here with Jenny and Nicholas Smith, who currently has his daughter Brooklyn, who is just a heroic battle right now that she's winning against DIPG. The DIPG Across the Map project is designed to encourage state proclamations for DIPG Awareness Day for May 17th, 2017 in as many states as possible. In a moment, I'm going to be speaking with Larry Fagan. He's a retired biotech researcher with a unique perspective on the DIPG experience and the importance of the project. We'll do that right after this bit of advocacy news from Jack's Angels Foundation. If you are following childhood cancer legislation, including the Race for Children Act or the Childhood Cancer STAR Act and their reintroductions, please visit kidsvcancer.org, like Kids versus Cancer, kidsvcancer.org, or childrenscause.org for up-to-date information. Quickly, I'd like to update you with some advocacy news and events for this bare beginning of 2017. January 2017. Exact date, tentatively, is January 30th, 2017, if you hold on just one moment. The National DIPG Awareness Resolution will be introduced, also naming May 17th as National DIPG Awareness Day. Now, just to give you a little bit of history, because in California we've had some activity for DIPG awareness. In 2014, Assemblyman Scott Wilk of in the California State Assembly introduced ACR 151, which declared the fourth week of May as DIPG Awareness Week. And last week's introduction of the National Resolution also did so for that week. And so we are grateful for this unification on the day of May 17th, as we've had them for February, we've had them for September, not lots of them, but it's time we all got together on this, and the Across the Map project has really done that, unified it for all of us. So I'll be at CC Talk Radio on Facebook. I will be in Washington on the day, January 30th, probably doing my DIPG awareness run. So I'll be reporting to you from there. In concert, so I already said this, let's see, in concert with the DIPG Across the Map project, with the Michael Mosier Defeat DIPG Foundation, find that at defeatdipg.org. Two gubernatorial proclamations were made last year in Pennsylvania and Maryland for that day, as we just discussed. Jack's Angels will be on its own, and hopefully in concert with others, stressing action days for the week of the 17th and every month until that wonderful day, to encourage people to call the representatives in Congress and in their state legislatures and their governors to support the Across the Map project. As far as the national resolution is concerned, it's designed as a childhood cancer awareness bill. I want to first and foremost, of course, bringing attention to DIPG is, my number one priority, but it's not going to have huge success, I don't feel, unless I stress this fact. This is the only bit of legislative text which confronts the 4% issue. Only 4% of our National Cancer Institute budget for research benefits pediatric cancer as a whole. And a lot of parents have been upset with this for the past few years, and there's really nowhere I've been able to see, and please write me at cctalkradio@gmail.com and let me know if I'm wrong. Not a lot of places in our government, in our advocacy world, where we're really getting a direct talk about this, but this bill does. It asks for more consideration for low survival rate cancers, for mortality rate, and for years of life lost, meaning children, because they're currently not evident. That's not evident, their priorities in our medical research system. And this is a call for that, without being political. Events in January, Beth Ann Telford takes on the World Marathon Challenge. Excuse me, just one moment. I have a technical issue here. Beth Ann is running 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. Oh my goodness. You can visit her journey at btwmc.org. That's brain tumor, or Beth Ann Telford. worldmarathonchallenge.org, all of course caps, btwmc.org, or you can find it at abcsquared.org. The event, if you sponsor miles, it benefits brain cancer research with ABC Squared, which is Accelerate Brain Cancer Cure, an awesome organization in the style of a venture capitalist company, but they fund brain cancer research, which is really awesome. Jack's Angels Relay for Research opens its registration for the virtual part of its run in support of the National DIPG Awareness Day and pediatric brain cancer research at curedipg.info on January 17th. That's next Tuesday. The actual event is Run the Rocks at Vasquez Rocks County Park in Aguadel State, California. That's our local event. That'll be April 30th of this year at runtherocks.info. Both features of the event can be accessed from runtherocks.info. Visit jacksangels.org for all updates on events, news, and shows on Childhood Cancer Talk Radio. And when we come back to speak with our guests, I want Jenny Mosier to please update us, because I know that this week they were launching their virtual run to support their local event, which I'm going to run, absolutely. I believe the Michael Mosier Defeat DIPG Foundation is having the Heroes Run, and she'll correct me with all the how I should be calling it. And that's on May 28th of this year, and they have a virtual run associated with it as well, which is awesome, because that way people can get involved from anywhere across the country or around the world. And I do encourage our world listeners, because we have listeners from 17 countries, to support, what we're trying to do here in the U.S. My hope is that it absolutely will affect the ease at which you can make progress with DIPG awareness and childhood cancer awareness across the globe. That's very, very important. And we love and appreciate our communities around the world that share with us. So please, again, contact me at cctalkradio@gmail.com if you would like to be on the show, have important news for the show, breakthrough in research, or any story of interest. We would be happy to consider it. And now, one more thing I want to say before we get back to our guests is the MIB agents, the Make It Better agents. Osteosarcoma Alliance is putting on their first ever conference called Factor, and it's in Miami this year, February 24th and 25th of 2017. It's coming up soon. Visit mibagents.org for more information about the Alliance and the conference. And Executive Director Ann Graham from MIB Agents joined us for our November 10th edition of Childhood Cancer Talk Radio, which you can find easily on toginet.com. Just look through on our shows page and our podcasts, and you'll find her for more information about the Osteosarcoma Alliance. Exciting research is on the horizon for ASPS, rhabdomyosarcoma, anaplastic Wilms, osteosarcoma, and DIPG this year. Please, if you have information you would like to share as an affected family, researcher, or innovative biotech company paving the way, contact us again at cctalkradio@gmail.com to be on the show. The show is for you. And back to our guests and the awesome DIPG Across the Map project. I'd like to speak, just get a quick note here from Jenny about your event that's coming up that I want to make sure everyone knows about. Take it away, Jenny.
Thank you, Janet. Sure. We were excited to launch the registration this week for our second annual Defeat DIPG Superhero Sprint and 6K, and it will be held in Bethesda, Maryland on Sunday, May 28th. And there is also the ability to be a virtual runner or a fundraiser for the event from anywhere, and all the information and details are at superheroes6k.com, and we hope that folks will check it out. And for any DIPG or other childhood cancer families who want their kids to be recognized, there's information on our site about how to send over pictures and information for us to honor your child. So thanks so much.
I love that page, Jenny. It's awesome. You've done such a beautiful job. I mean, it makes me so happy to look through that page. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I wanted to quickly introduce here our friend who is joining us, Larry Fagan. He is a retired after a career in the field of computers and medicine research with recent interests in patient-focused participatory medicine and patient safety. Lawrence received his PhD in computer science from Stanford University and his MD from the University of Miami. May I call you Larry?
Sure, absolutely.
So glad you're with us today, lending your very important perspective. Please let us know, how did you first hear about DIPG? And I know there was a child that you were following.
So it's funny because I didn't know any families that were caring for a child with DIPG until I read Michael's story as written by Jenny on Facebook. And then it turns out that because I'm friends with one of her neighbors who supported the events like the one that Jenny was just talking about, and he would like that. And I said, what is this disease and what is this story? And so I think I'm a typical example of the kind of person you're trying to reach with this DIPG Across the Map project, because in addition to all the families that are working so hard, you need other people who have had similar situations, or like where I had a daughter with a major medical problem as a child who realized that there's a problem here that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what struck you the most when you read Michael's story?
Well, I think Jenny did a good job of portraying someone who's, perfectly well just before they're starting school, and then within weeks having trouble, and then being given this very, very difficult prognosis, and I realized, we can put efforts into lots of different things, but here's something where effort will make a difference if enough people know about it.
Absolutely. It's saving lives. Yeah.
I just have to jump in just for 1 second. I mean,
sure.
Larry really highlighted the thing that I think as families, all of us are seeking, which is, it can't just be us, like Larry says. It can't just be the families who are fighting for this. If we don't broaden the network, if we don't get other people invested and caring about making progress on this disease, we're really, probably not going to be able to make a difference. And so it can't be emphasized enough how important people like Larry are to, the goals that all of us share.
Absolutely. And we will be back in just a moment after station identification with more from Larry and from Jenny and from another guest after these messages from our TogiNet sponsors. Don't go away.
Stay tuned. Janet will be right back with more on Childhood Cancer Talk Radio, where kids come first for the cure.
Have you heard? The pages of American Patchwork and Quilting magazine come to life on our new weekly online radio show, American Patchwork and Quilting. Join Pat Sloan, our blogging and quilt designer host, as she talks about the latest trends, ideas, and inspirations. Her guests include quilt pattern designers, authors, quilt shop owners, and our editors, all quilters, just like you. Call in with your questions. Get quilting tips from industry experts. Learn about free patterns. Hear behind-the-scenes stories from our magazines, American Patchwork and Quilting, Quilt Sampler, and Quilts and More. Get the scoop on free stuff and find out more about the best independent quilt shops in North America. To listen to a live show, tune in Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Just log on to allpeoplequilt.com/radio. To hear past shows, go to iTunes and search for American Patchwork and Quilting Radio. We hope you'll join us because we know that quilting changes everything.
It's words you never heard.
It's well known in medical practices that patients tend to lie about their health habits. They lie about how much they smoke, understate how much they drink or eat, and overstate how much they exercise. What's another word for those little white lies we like to tell in the examination room? Taradiddles. Doctors have a rule of thumb. Whatever the patient says they're drinking, smoking, or eating, multiply it by 2. But it's hard to come clean about your habits when you know you're in for some jobation from the doctor. That's criticism we don't want to hear. If physicians want us to be honest with them, I suggest they try being a little less judgmental and use a little suaviloquence. That's soothing, encouraging talk.
It's Marching Neighborhood.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
And we're back from break. I'm Janet Demeter with Childhood Cancer Talk Radio, where kids come first for the cure, and we have a great show for you today. We're finishing up with DIPG Across the Map and the importance of awareness for this disease. I was speaking just before the break with our guest, Larry Fagan, who is a retired researcher for 40 years. And Larry, you were talking about, just as an individual being shocked and finding it out, but also how that affected you coming from the perspective of being a researcher.
Right. So in medical school, I don't ever remember hearing about DIPG, and that's probably true for most of the medical professionals. So getting the word out to providers is important. But as a researcher in the 40 years of work in the medical area, I also didn't hear about DIPG. So funding for research depends strongly on the awareness of researchers and funders about the challenges of treating patients and diseases like DIPG. So this is another area where you really have to get the word out, because they will make funding opportunities if they know about it. And, it's not just DIPG, because I recently read about a Stanford professor who had great resources, had a huge network, and with a tremendous effort was unable to save his son who had glioblastoma. So I think all the people with these kind of pediatric brain cancers need to work together, because of the fact that individual ones may not be known, but maybe the whole idea that this is where there needs to be effort, this is where there needs to be funding, where there has to be research progress, can be presented.
Well,
so
absolutely. Brain cancer in general is the leading cause of death in kids with cancer, and historically has been one of the least funded areas of research. And I believe we have a strong ally in the National Brain Tumor Society, and NBTA also, the association, for the agenda this year. So, and I hope, maybe we can talk about this, behind the scenes, about petitioning them more to come on board and be supportive of DIPG awareness, both for childhood cancer and for brain cancer, because it's so important that we raise awareness for it, for the number, as a researcher, and also just the human experience that we all have to endure going through this and are expected to, because our numbers are small. It's just I really believe that, as Americans, and this being a time when we really need to be clear on what our values are, that it's a good time. It's a really good time, I think, to promote it. I really do, and I really feel very positive about it. This DIPG Across the Map, if you would like to help out there and get involved, visit DIPG.org, defeat, DIPG/DIPG Across the Map. If you just go to defeatdipg.org, you can find it. But the exact address to where you can sign up for information and potentially participate in your state, go for it. We've been talking today with Jenny Mosier of Defeat DIPG the Michael Mosier Defeat DIPG Foundation. Jenny, I want to always be sure I include all the words in the name because I know I haven't done that at times before.
Don't worry.
But Michael was an amazing example of these children, these amazing children that fight this illness with heroism and with love and with concern for the kids that come after them. And it's quite a legacy that you've created for him, Jenny. And it's awesome to see this project happening. And we have another guest today, and Keren Beukema. Did I pronounce your name right?
Yes, thank you.
Yay! Oh my gosh.
It's a tough one.
No, it's actually a beautiful name. I just want to make sure I said it right. Now, Keren, your son, Vincent, just tragically lost his life to DIPG. Just wasn't it this last June or July?
Yeah, July. So we actually hit 6 months of his passing tomorrow.
Wow, that's huge.
Which comes at a great time, yeah.
So,
talk about.
Closing with your story is very important because this has been for 50 years. And I do believe we have hope on the horizon and things are changing. And might I add, because of parent-initiated organizations like the Cure Starts Now, like Michael Mosier Defeat DIPG Foundation. And I'd like to include mine, but we haven't raised enough money for research. We try with Jack's Angels, but our forte has been activism and awareness. And when we can give, we do. But it's because of organizations like this that research is getting funded, that people are learning about it. And we have here this DIPG Across the Map, and you're my partner now, right, in California?
Absolutely.
And you too, Larry. And we're going to be working it. I have my letter to the governor written, and we're also working on the legislature. So we Californians have to powwow with our assembly members and state senators to do something also in the legislature, hopefully. So tell us a little bit about your son, Vincent, and how he is inspiring you're moving forward with all of this.
So first I want to say thank you for including me. It's definitely an honor. Vincent was the biggest Star Wars fan I've ever met. Even on awesome. Star Tours, he knew what land we had landed on before they announced it in Disneyland. He was 10, and we noticed a little bit in the early ends of June he was falling often, but he was tall and lanky. So we thought, hey, he's 10, he's just trying to get into his big body. But then all of a sudden his eye went inward, and the next day his speech was slurred. I was kind of sure that he had a stroke because I didn't know, much like everyone else, that DIPG was something. So we took him to his pediatrician, who within 10 seconds told us to go to the ER. And at that point, I sure, as I sit here, was positive he had a stroke. We had the initial MRI and noticed there was quite a buzz out of our ER room. But I had never been to an ER room, and I said, well, maybe that's because he's 10 and they want to get him out of here. And walks the doctor and says he has a brain tumor. Someone will be in to talk with you shortly. And I was shocked was an understatement. I had already sent my husband home, figuring we were just going to get treated and go. And then he had the neurosurgeon came in and told us they didn't have what he needed, a pediatric neurosurgeon at Kaiser, so we were shooed off to UC Davis Children's. And from there, he had 2 more MRIs, and then they had gotten us out of his room in the PICU, and they told us that they needed to talk to us. From then on, I don't remember what they had said to us in the initial meeting. My husband was there, and he walked back in the room. He said, I think they just told us that this is terminal. They didn't give us a diagnosis yet. And I said, no, I don't remember them saying that. We're fine. We're going to get chemo, and we'll be fine. And he'll, I'll just stay home with him. I'll quit my job, and I'll just stay home and take care of him. It's not a big deal. We'll be fine. He said, no, I think they just told us it's bad.
No.
So 2 days later, the oncologist took me in a room by myself. My husband had gone for the day. We have 2 other children. And she says the words to me, "I'm so sorry to have to tell you." And then I said things to her that I'm not proud of, but basically told her to stop talking to me. I apologized afterwards. But how am I going to tell my children? Are we supposed to move out of our house? What are we going to do? And then she had written the words on a paper, DIPG. So I go back to the room because he was by himself, and I promised him he would not be. So I went back to the room, got myself together, and thought, what in the world is going on? Soon then after, they kind of came in, started talking to us about potential treatment, with radiation being the only thing that could give him a little extra time and maybe help him. But he was deteriorating so quickly. He went from being a normal kid talking to playing on the iPad in the ER to 8 hours later, couldn't stand up to go to the restroom, couldn't talk, couldn't move his left side of his body. His arms were stuck to his chest. It was all happening quickly, and we knew that probably they were telling us radiation, he maybe could get speech back.
Well, I just want to let people know also this disease is like that. Once they're showing symptoms, they're very close to death, and you don't really realize that unless they do go quickly, which is very tragic. And I believe that's what happened with your Vincent.
Yeah, so we ended up just having a big powwow with 8 doctors and, the oncologist and the I believe she's called the child life specialist from the hospital, attendings, people I don't know were in a room, and we kind of point blank asked them, we said, should we just go home?
Wow.
And, of course, they can't tell you what to do. But they were all kind of nodding their heads at us. So from there, we went home to hospice, and 3 weeks later, he had passed.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I
just remember my son going very quickly when progression happened. But we got some more time, and it's just, I'm very, very sorry.
It's terrible. Yeah. And the thing that I want to point out is every day after I wish that maybe we would have tried something, but he was going so quickly. For him, and not for every child because every child is different, but for him, I don't think that radiation, he was so far gone already that I don't think radiation would have helped him.
Well, what we want to do is we're working for this DIPG Across the Map. Go to defeatdipg.org. No parent should have to dissect their brains over and over again. What did I do wrong? What could we have done? This is what happens without exception, really, for the most part, with DIPG. I can't thank my guests today, Jenny Mosier, Larry Fagan, Nicholas Smith, and Keren Beukema, right?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. We're out of time for today, but I hope to have you back. Let's come back in March or April and push this thing through. DIPG Across the Map, everyone. DefeatDIPG.org.
Thank you very much.
Hope you have found inspiration from today's show. For more about Janet Demeter and her mission, visit jacksangels.org. As founder and president, Janet strives to assure that children with cancer and their parents have a voice, raising